Hello and welcome to CFA Society New York's podcast, Compound Insights. I'm your host, Rob Rowan. Today we're going to hear some very timely topics from Karin Svensson. She is Senior Advisor at Swedish International Development Cooperation, which we'll call SIDA from here on. SIDA is Sweden's government agency for development, and its goal is to reduce poverty and oppression in countries around the world. Karin's areas of expertise include SIDA's work with the private sector, and she is SIDA's project lead on global investors for sustainable development. Previously, she was a financial journalist with Sweden's largest business daily. So, Karin, thank you for being on the podcast with us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Could we start with how SIDA works with the private sector, please?
Yeah, being a development actor, we really like working in partnerships for sustainable development, because in partnerships with other actors, we can push each other, challenge each other, and create a greater impact and a long-lasting impact together. And we are especially keen on working with the private sector, since private sector, they create new jobs, they invest, and they can create sustainable growth. They are also a major actor for transition towards the green and the sustainable future that we all want. And the latest years, we have put an extra focus on investors, which we think are truly catalytical, because they, of course, invest, speak the word of money if you want. They can execute the powers as owners in their work on corporate governance, and they can ask and push for transparency and reporting, and all this in their whole portfolio of hundreds or thousands of companies that they invest in, or bonds that they invest in also, for that matter. So this is a group that we work a lot with. In 2016, we took the initiative together with the largest Swedish investors to form Swedish Investors for Sustainable Development. And later on in 2018, this partnership inspired the UN to and SIDA inspired the UN to form Global Investors for Sustainable Development that consists of 30 of the world's largest investors and a few companies and asset owners also. So investors, and then Rob, maybe just to mention a few other ways that we work with private sector is through our guarantees, where we can guarantee investments for sustainable development, and in line with the Swedish priorities for sustainable development and development cooperation, and investments that wouldn't have been made otherwise. We also work in private-public partnerships with companies, and we have challenge funds where we provide the kind of seed money to small companies that we think should grow, and that also work for poor people, so to say.
Okay, and just to clarify, those investors are asset owners, SDGs, etc.?
Yeah, the participants in GIS, the Global Investors for Sustainable Development, those are asset owners and asset managers, a few investment banks, and also a few companies.
Okay, I do want to get onto the guarantee instrument because I think that's going to be very interesting to the folks who are listening to the podcast. But I'd like to just back up for 1 second, because you all have been doing this for sort of a decent amount of midterm. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you measure results and success, and what those things tell you about the private sector outreach that you've done.
Yeah, so this is a little bit a difficult part because what we want to see is individual action from the different participants, and a certain amount of those actions we cannot count to the formation of GISD or the formation of SISD. What we can see since we started SISD and GISD, and I mean, the whole ecosystem is sort of changing. It's not because of those two partnerships, but we see a development in the world that sustainable finance is becoming a trend. But we also perform a survey, or UNDESA, who is the project lead of Global Investors for Sustainable Development. They perform an annual survey among the members on achievements that they sort of report back to the other participants. And you can also visit the website of Global Investors for Sustainable Development, that is www.gisdalliance.org. And here you can see the position papers that GISD has been accomplishing and the recommendations for transparency and reporting. There's been 5 KPIs for 8 different sectors recommended to the whole business community. And there are position papers on the MDB's potential for catalyzing private investments also. So those are sort of achievements by the group. And one thing that the group recently launched is a model mandate for asset owners and asset managers. And this was work performed together with ICGN, International Corporate Governance Network. And this sort of model mandate, GISD hopes, will inspire asset managers around the world when they contract new asset managers. And it has built in sustainability, of course, and referring back to a definition that GISD also has put together on sustainable development investing. Hope that answers a little bit.
It does. It was a lot of letters. So for anyone listening to the podcast, I'll put links in the show notes on our website. So if you're out listening to this on your phone, you can go ahead there and click on those things and see them, because there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
That's what the internet is for. So I guess one of the things I'm particularly keen on hearing from, based on your knowledge of all of that, is how you think asset owners' roles will evolve in these areas in the future.
Yeah, so what we hear from the members in SASD and GISD is that they have their mandate, they have their fiduciary duty towards the policyholders, of course, but within that framework in Europe, for example, the fiduciary duty and the understanding of this is developing. So sustainability is within the fiduciary duty also. It's considered to be there now. And this is also related to the new regulatory frameworks that the European Commission is coming up to. So there's this whole understanding that asset owners also need to engage in sustainability within their mandate given, of course. But there's a lot to do within that mandate also. And I think that most policyholders, at least many policyholders and many young policyholders in Europe, they are looking for more sustainability when it comes to as their asset manager and asset owner and the pension funds, etc. And we see this whole movement of young people in Europe that ask for more sustainability. So I think there's a growing need for asset owners to engage, and a few European asset owners, they also engage in stakeholder dialogues with their policyholders on how to work with the sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe this is a good place to talk about how the work you've done and others have done have led to an expansion of the menu of investments that the asset owners have to choose from to accomplish some of those goals. So maybe now is a good time to talk about. So let me go back for a second. So in the work we've done with asset owners, making investments in frontier markets often look really good, but have a couple of practical problems. One is they're relatively small, so the volume is difficult for asset owners over a certain size to handle, and there are certain due diligence hurdles. So when you look at those things, this is why I think SIDA's guarantee instrument is exceptionally interesting. So could you talk to us about that, about what that does?
Yeah, of course. So we have a guarantee frame given by the Swedish government of 20 billion Swedish crowns. That is about $2 billion US dollars. And this guarantee instrument can be used for catalyzing investments that are in line with the Swedish priorities for sustainable development and in line with our strategies. So it's an instrument that is flexible. It has to be strategy aligned, that I said, and it can increase investments for developing economies. And it also does have a poverty focus. So there's a lot of things to tick in the box before you can get the guarantee. And mostly it's the investment need that starts to work on a guarantee. So it's not asset owner, asset manager coming to us, but we do welcome that also. But most of the time it's an investment need. And we do make a thorough due diligence of the whole financial system surrounding this particular investment opportunity, so it doesn't disturb the market, etc. So there's a lot of things to look into.
So just to give you a few examples of SIDA guarantees historically, we have worked in cooperation with IFC, the World Bank subsidiary that works a lot with private actors, and we provided a guarantee to a program that they have called MCPP, Managed Co-Lending Portfolio Program, where we actually did 3 different tranches with 3 different insurance companies. And here SIDA provided a guarantee of 50 million Swedish crowns that released investments for 1 billion Swedish crowns in sustainable infrastructure. And translated to US dollars, that's 5 million that released investments for at the amount of 100 million US for infrastructure investments, of course. And the latest guarantee that we announced just last week was an orange bond that actually will be listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. And it's an orange bond, orange because it releases investments for gender and gender equality and female empowerment. It's a tranche of 600 million Swedish crowns that will be lended to female entrepreneurs and women having small and medium-sized businesses, so for women empowerment. So that is an example of a few guarantees that we have made, but we have this guarantee frame of 20 billion Swedish crowns, and where we still have room for new guarantees that are in line with the Swedish priorities for sustainable development.
But we have used more than half of our guarantee frame now. And I could mention maybe 2 or 3 particular investments that it has catalyzed. And so one is together with IFC, the World Bank daughter, so to say, where we structured an instrument called MCPP, Multi-Portfolio Partnership Corporation. And it is... Yes, so we provided a guarantee there for a few asset owners where they commit a certain amount of assets that will be dispersed over time. And we think this instrument has been a little bit of a game changer when it was introduced. And just so that is an instrument that has catalyzed a large amount of assets, $3 billion, I think.
Wow.
And just recently we introduced, or we launched, and this is a news that a guarantee for an orange bond that will be listed on the stock exchange in Singapore. And it's a small instrument, but it will be catalyzing $60 million.
I've heard of green bonds. What is an orange bond? Is that on the fruit or the color?
Yeah. Oh no, it's a color. It's a color of a bond, and it's referring back to SDG 5, so gender equality. And SIDA just or is in the making of launching an orange bond that will catalyze investments for women, or it will make possible for women to lend money for their private businesses for so it will be focused towards gender equality, and for small and medium-sized companies earned by and conducted or managed by women.
Great. How big is that bond offering?
It will be catalyzing 600 million Swedish crowns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is sort of an interesting sidebar to this because there's a lot of this going on, as I mentioned earlier, and for lots of good reasons. I wonder how you see the multilateral development bank's role in this area changing in the future also.
Yeah, thank you for that point. So we have our guarantee instrument, and as you heard, the guarantees are looking for very specific investment opportunities. But we also believe in catalyzing the greater assets without guarantees, maybe for developing economies. And here, the investors have been pointing out to us the possibility of investing in line with the multilateral development banks and especially World Bank. So GIST has an ongoing work together with World Bank on how to catalyze private assets and private money in line with the multilateral development bank's operations. And it's a work that is advancing. It is a little bit slow, but we think it has a huge potential. And the participants in GIST tell us, well, our assets, the total assets under management of the asset owners and asset managers in the world is now 600 times bigger than the assets of the multilateral development banks. So there's a huge potential in catalyzing those assets also for sustainable development and to align those investments with the sustainable development goals and to catalyze new investments for developing economies. So we are really engaging in that.
That is cutting edge stuff. Like that is really, really interesting. I think that a lot of folks on here will really appreciate looking at the websites that you just mentioned, which, as I said, I will post here. So hopefully it'll be interesting to see how this evolves with sovereign bond issuance, et cetera, as it goes forward. I think it's a really neat area and something that is very important to the members to understand.
Maybe if I could add there a little bit on the potential of sustainable development goals bonds. We see a huge potential there also. We've seen some companies coming to market with SDG corporate bonds and a few countries coming to market with SDG sovereign bonds. And this is really exciting news, we think. Of course, the SDG bonds have to be seen in the context of what is the debt situation of the specific country, but still the SDG sovereign bonds represent a possibility for the country to align with sustainable development when issuing it, and for the investors to align their portfolios with sustainable development also.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting also because it does create another hurdle of due diligence.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that your organization is looking closely at that. So, so thank you for that, Karin. That's really interesting. As I said to everyone who might have gotten lost in the alphabet soup of those things, we'll have links on our website. On our next podcast, which will drop 1 week from today, we're going to stay with the developing markets and frontier markets when we hear from Mia Sklokina, who is an analyst at Lord Abbett. Until next time, I'm your host, Rob Rowan, and this has been Compound Insights.